Starting today, you can serve seafood like this. Fabulous seafood, seasoned to perfection.
Welcome once again to Basement Communion. I'm Reverend Terry.
This is the Grindhouse Cellar.
And today we wanted to take a look at the 1997 classic, I Know What You Did Last Summer. But first, the time is October 1997. It's 1997. I think we're still obsessed with like Lion King and Titanic. Princess Diana has died and Hail Bob Comet had people themselves. It was a weird time. What were you doing during this time?
What I was doing, I was like a little bit younger than these kids, so I was just living my life. You know, I wasn't like Ryan Felipe driving a BMW or anything. Occasionally, my dad would let me borrow his car, and I'd go to see movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer. And the car had a hand crank sunroof. I'm not sure if anyone listening would even understand what that is, but you would roll it back like a window. I'm driving around in the country one time. This was during the summer previous, and this girl in the back seat crawled forward, stood on the armrest, and stood out the window. And I was just thinking to myself, don't hit a deer, don't hit a deer. So this movie kind of hit home when I was watching it. But, you know, I was just doing kid stuff back then, 97.
I feel like technically this movie was for your generation, pretty much. Like, this is your generation's film.
Right.
Like, they were tailored to have you watch it.
It was made for my generation. Like, you know, exactly. This was, they picked a cast of, you're going to find someone attractive in this cast. And that was by design. And they kind of geared them different social statuses, and they kind of threw them together and kicked the hive. Let's see what happens.
I was 10 years old, but 1997 was a huge year for me because, one, I saw The Fifth Element.
Yes.
Which was an important film in my life, an extremely important film in my life. And two, I saw titties in Starship Troopers.
Yes, Starship Troopers.
Those two things changed my life in 1997.
Did it blow your mind?
Yeah, like just everything. Those two movies together probably kind of helped me on my way there to be who I am today.
They brought a new flavor of sci-fi to mainstream.
Yeah.
That wasn't allowed before, I guess you could say. You know, people scoffed at it, and then mainstream kind of accepted those.
And it was a big year for the mainstream sci-fi. And that was one way to get little Rev Terry excited, was just be like, man, we're in space. And I'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm there.
But at the time that all this was coming out, we were right on the verge of like kind of horror changing for that generation. The late 90s kind of changing horror into this like meta comment on itself.
Exactly. And that kind of allowed this film to happen too.
Yeah. That leads us to the fact that, you know, it's kind of always seen as like a Scream knockoff, or at least it felt like that but it was actually written at the same time as Scream.
Yeah, he had written it like 6 years prior, shopped it around, and no one wanted it because essentially slashers were dead.
Yeah.
And he kind of made that blow back up by dropping a different screenplay.
And that's the thing, is we're talking Kevin Williamson. He had a hand in this entire meta horror movement. So Kevin Williamson wrote the script for I Know What You Did Last Summer, based off of a book by Lois Duncan.
Lois Duncan.
Yeah, Lois Duncan. So he wrote that script, and he wrote it a while ago. But he also, in the meantime, before this got put in production, he wrote Scream, which kicked this entire new, mainstream horror.
Action. Wes Craven was sitting in the lobby of Miramax, and I recognized, as soon as I got off the elevator, I was like, that's Wes Craven, that's Wes Craven. And I had someone come up and they said, Kevin Wes. And he went, Kevin Williamson? I said, yeah. He goes, I read your script. It was really scary. And I thought, I can lay down and die.
Yeah, slashers were dead at that point. I mean, no one wanted to watch something and just run through the ringer. People are sick of it.
Yeah. And that's kind of where that meta humor kind of revitalized it. And it gets a lot of slack now, but like you said, slashers were fucking dead. So, you know, without Scream kind of coming in and making it cool to do a slasher again, you know, we wouldn't have had any from that time.
So many films would not have been greenlit if it weren't for Scream.
I mean, just to say how important this guy was to early 2000 horror, we're talking The Faculty. He wrote The Faculty.
Amazing movie. That one really, I latched onto. That one was cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, we're talking like a meta, like it was a very meta film about, you know, it was the Pod People movie for Generation X-ish, you know,
He kind of, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, rebirth for that new generation.
This guy literally made like Dawson Creek and H2O.
The cool thing about the Dawson's Creek angle is the beach, and I Know What You Did Last Summer is named Dawson's Beach.
Yeah.
And I don't know which is a reference to which, but both around the same time period. It's kind of cool. He's just creating his own universe.
I mean, he created our universe. This guy was responsible for some of the biggest media at that time.
You may not know his name, but you know his work.
And even today, we have the Vampire Diaries. He adapted that originally for TV.
Yep.
So pretty crazy. But on top of that, he directed one movie only, and it's kind of a weird favorite for me, like a rental favorite, but it was Teaching Miss Tingle.
Oh, man, that's cool. I didn't realize he was behind that.
Yeah, that was his only movie, and it did do very well, but like for some reason, I don't know, it's one of those movies I watched when I was a kid that felt like it was too old for me or something, and so it felt like a bad thing watching it, and for some reason that made me like that movie so much.
Oh, that is such a good film.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes in like it's a good pair with like Jawbreaker or something.
Oh yeah.
He was a big fan of horror, the genre in general. As you can see in his scripts, he has a lot of references to that. He actually got to meet Jamie Lee Curtis he was very stoked to meet Jamie Lee Curtis on the set of this. She was like filming something else, and she stopped by to see like what was. Oh, she was doing Virus, which is an amazing film. I love Virus.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, didn't Jennifer Love Hewitt invite her to the set or
something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
He got to meet her, and he was just stoked.
And Kevin Williamson wrote it, who he like brought horror film back to what it should be. So
this guy had a grip on media in general. But when we look at this one, it's based off of that story, and it really doesn't have this. It got greenlit because of Scream, but it kind of had to morph into a slasher to kind of work.
Right. Yeah. The original book, which I read, is more of a young adult thriller.
When you're in the 4th grade, I opened this book and I read it, and I was like terrified for like a month.
And when the movie came out, Lois Duncan was very upset that it was a slasher.
Yeah.
It was, you know, obviously she must have made some money and sold the rights, so she couldn't fight that, but was disappointed with the end result, which America loved.
Along with her, the director wasn't super stoked about making a horror film either. He was actually quoted, like direct quote, "I wasn't interested in making a horror film particularly."
You can kind of feel that because it's a bit...
Yeah, definitely.
It's a bit toothless if you compare it to Scream and others of the era, in the gore and blood.
Yeah, there's very little gore and blood in the film.
Refused to shoot virtually any blood at all.
If you look at it, like at the soundtrack, it starts and ends really hard. It opens up with like
Hypo Negative singing Summer Breeze.
Oh, negative. Summer Breeze, which is a really hard opening. And I was like, fuck yeah. And it closes with the chorus.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep.
And you think it's gonna have some teeth, and it never lives up to that bookended soundtrack of like the harder mainstream music of the time period.
No, it doesn't.
The soundtrack's pretty fun.
I love the soundtrack, actually. I was thinking about that this last time I watched it. Starting with the Typo Negative, very 90s angst
Yes.
going on there.
No, I hadn't watched this since I saw it in the theaters originally, so that was kind of like a blast from the past, kind of like, yes.
Yeah. Even the way it opens, like the
Yeah.
cam over the waves and stuff breaking on that like main beach. It's like very 90s.
Well, that was one thing I kind of want to talk about was the landscape kind of threw me off. I saw the opening scene with the waves breaking, the cliff sides, and then the main part of the movie where they're driving is very cliffy and turny, which looks kind of Pacific Northwest, Northern California. But this movie's set in North Carolina, which I've been to, and it's flat as all fuck.
Wait, there's a beach in North Carolina? Where the fuck is North Carolina?
That's where this takes place.
Holy shit, I thought it was Maine because of the way it looked.
Nah. Well, that's the other thing. You're thinking that the Northeast, the Northwest, that kind of rocky, craggy look is what they kind of captured in this film. But it's set. They've got the fishing village. It's supposed to be North Carolina.
Huh. All right, now I gotta look at a map of what North Carolina fucking looks. Yeah, it does have a. What the fuck? I never knew what North Carolina was until right now. I've just found out that North Carolina is touches water. But back to the blood. Most of the blood we see is really they had to fight the director to put the blood in at all.
There were moments when executives wanted us to shoot more of the gore.
It does kind of work.
Yeah.
You know, and some of the kills are better for it, I think.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm very for the build up and tension to the kill. I like gore. It doesn't have to be there if it's effective.
Yeah. The director, you know, is pretty open about it being a movie mostly about chasing people around. The big, and we'll probably get to it in a second, but the big death scene is really the first one.
Oh yeah.
So originally Melissa Joan Hart was given or looked at, but she turned it down because she didn't want to do any slashers, I guess.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I always liked her work. Clarissa Explains It All, I grew up with, and I was straight into Teenage Witch and all that.
Again, it's just another one of those people that's like this iconic 90s person, had been around us, you know, as this big teenage celebrity for longer than anyone could be a teenager. But, you know, you only get so many years of being a teenager, like 10. Not even
7 or so.
So the first thing was nobody wanted Freddy, is what the director said, saying he was too muscular or too soft and not muscular enough.
I think they're possibly casting off the characters in the book then.
Yeah, at least at the beginning there.
As his character was a football player, I believe, in the book. So maybe that's why they were saying he wasn't big enough.
But it's kind of weird because the guy they picked for, what's his name?
Ryan Felipe?
Yeah, Ryan Felipe isn't a big guy, and they have him kind of playing a bigger guy. They have him playing like the bully and stuff, and he's standing up to a tall. I mean, like when he's next to Freddie Prinze Jr., like Freddie Prinze Jr. usually played something more similar to that, and also is like much taller and has like, defined muscles, but you don't even notice like in that scene when they like he runs up to him.
You don't. He
like little man's his ass.
Yeah, he carries that well.
He just goes up and little man's his ass. It's hilarious. It works really well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. And so, you know, it's weird that there was this mix up and then they put him in as that after saying that Freddie Prinze was too soft. So maybe there was a point where it was closer to their book they were trying to go for. They also originally, and then this is according to the director, and we'll get more into why maybe we can't completely believe everything the director says, because there is some discrepancies between actor and director as far as what went on. But
always is.
Yeah, but we'll get to that a little later. But along with that, they didn't want Sarah Michelle Gellar, I guess, originally, the producers. Although he was like, that's the right choice, I guess. And that's according to the director.
Now, why is that?
They said that she okay, so this is their quote, or his quote about them quoting that she was too much of a Jewish princess feel to her, I guess. That may be a Hollywood term. That sounds weird to me. What is it? Yeah, it sounds like something I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
But but so according to the director, he had to fight for both Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. to be in the film.
Which was a good move on his part. I think it was well cast.
No, definitely. That's one of my favorite parts is the cast of the film.
The key element in the whole casting process was finding actors who also look good because it is a movie and we have attractive people in our film, but they had to be great actors.
So Gillespie, or the director, his name is Jim Gillespie,
Yes.
doesn't give us like a ton of crap that people are gonna know as far as directing things. Although he did have a movie, Venom, which I enjoyed. It was kind of like a weird body horror, like sadomasochist thing going on. It was pretty sick.
Yeah, not the comic book Venom.
No, not that. But it was a pretty cool film. It's kind of like goofy horror, like trying to be super dark and brooding.
Yeah.
But not much else of that as a director. He has some other stuff, TV work, things like that. Although he seems to have some kind of, like when you're reading things, it seems that people talk to him about him like he has some kind of, like people wanted to work with him at this time for some reason. And I don't really know why.
I was familiar with Jim. We had a relationship. When his name came up, before I know what he did last summer, I was just smiling.
Who knows behind the curtain what happened? It could have been a lot of good PR passed around about him for some reason.
He did 2 Queen videos. But
well, that
might be it. I don't know. I just thought it was weird while I was looking that stuff up that everyone kind of seemed like they wanted to really work with this director. And then also like they were pushing this movie onto this director. But I don't see like what he did before that was so awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of great directors have come out of the music video industry, so it could have been that path. I don't know.
So yeah, it opened at October 17th, so Halloween movie all the way, 1997. It only had a $17 million budget, and again with the slasher thing, the great thing about these slashers is as far as mainstream films go, they can be made for extremely cheap. So with this one, it pulled in $125 million worldwide, and stayed for the.
Yeah, so no one was hurting.
Yeah, no one. This did okay. It did really well when it was going through until Halloween hit, and then it kind of dropped out of the theaters. But after doing this one, Kevin Williamson did do Halloween H2O. He was a huge Halloween fan. I know some people don't like H2O, but I actually dig it.
I love that he got Jamie, who you met here, and got her mother involved in the film, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Someday we're going to look back on the Halloween sequels we have right now and remember this time where they kept making these sequels that were like all had this same feel. And hopefully I'll have the same respect I have for Halloween H2O in that time where I look and be like, that's like a time capsule of like our version of Michael Myers during this moment. And that's how Halloween feels. Like I have a respect for it being that like, that was my Halloween. Like that was my generation's Halloween. It's full of meta humor. Josh Hartnett's got the same hair I got right now. Fucking, it's got LL Cool J in it, and it's I don't know. Like because I'm not a huge fan of the Halloween movies that have come out recently, but I hope someday I can look back and be like, this is a good
time capsule again.
Yeah, of this time. Yeah, like, it may not have been the greatest time for like good movies, but like, it was there. Like it. But the movie itself, like you said, it has absolutely no teeth really for a horror film.
Yeah, I mean, they do get into it when Johnny Galecki's scene, and that's about it. Yeah,
so how do you say that guy's name? Galecki?
Johnny Galecki.
I just call him the kid from Roseanne, because that's how I always remember him.
I always think of him as the kid from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh yeah,
And
he played Rusty.
Rusty, exactly. Most people tuning in probably think of him as the what is that show? The Big Bang Theory guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was the brutalest kill in this film for sure.
He was. He was.
When we previewed the film, it became apparent that what would be a huge benefit to the film was if we saw him do something violent once earlier in the film. And so Kevin and I put our heads together.
So according to the director, again, okay, so a direct quote is, the truth is we had a movie where the killer didn't do anything, he just chased people. So they wanted to give something at the beginning there that kind of made it feel like there was stakes of some sort.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's not as much stakes. I mean, there's no early kill like that in the book because it's more of a thriller. This gives it that slasher appeal. The stakes are real. Someone died brutally.
And the director, according to the director, again, direct quote, he was someone that people liked. He was a likable character.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true for me. He was a very unlikable character in the movie.
He's a likable actor. He's a shit in the movie.
I hated him in the movie.
And this role and every spin-off and whatnot has also been a shit. So yeah, you didn't like him in the movie.
No, I didn't think so.
I mean, he's just a regular guy, but he was kind of a shit.
Yeah, he was like all distrusting and stuff, which I guess is okay, but he just seemed like a creepy, like controlling incel or something. I don't know. But then he gets it pretty good. The hook is good, and it really is the most brutal kill in the whole movie.
Yeah.
He had just done Roseanne right then, so he was a liked dude. I don't think that character was very likable.
Not at all. I mean, the director's wrong there. He's not a likable character.
No. It's weird that the director says things like that because he was directing the movie.
Not the feel we got.
Oh, tell me, little Miss Prelaw, what's the charge for manslaughter? We make a pact and take this to our grave.
The movie itself revolves around, them accidentally killing somebody, or thinking they killed somebody, air quotes or whatever. They dump them into the water, and then somebody starts killing people around them and chasing them. That looks like the Vandekamp's man and has a hook for a hand, right?
See, I think of him as the Gorton's fisherman.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is alcohol in the car. What happens? What do you do?
It's just the anxiety associated with knowing that you did something so awful.
Do you go to the police? Well, you're going to fry for this. They're going to go to prison. They're going to be tried as adults. Or do they get rid of the body? And they're left with quite a dilemma.
Yeah, so it is an old campfire tale. In the movie, they go to Dawson's Beach. They all sit around in each Rashomon kind of style, tell their own version of the story. They're all different.
Yeah, the hook.
The hook hand killer.
Yeah.
And it's one I used to tell in Boy Scouts back in the day. I was in Boy Scouts, and it was just this thing you did. I remember someone brought in the Photoshop of the day was taking a cartoon from the Far Side out of the paper and erasing it and writing your own numbers on it and photocopying it with a new piece of paper over it. So it said our troop numbers and boys sitting around the fire going, and the man with the hooked hand, the hook was on the door. And it was just this story you told.
Oh yeah. And it, I think the first time I ever saw it was in those scary tales to tell in the dark, which were really big when I was a kid. They were one of my favorite books from the library.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that was the shit from the Scholastic News Fair that flew off the shelves.
Oh,
man.
and they really were just collections of urban myths and like old stories and stuff retold in that kind of style with the amazing art. A million different versions of it. It exists across the United States.
Yeah. We told it organically around the fire, and it kind of was a combination of several of the versions they told in this. And I kind of like that they use that as their killer, and that was kind of revisited later in Urban Legends.
Yeah, so this is before Urban Legend, although Urban Legend takes the hook thing and mixes it with all the other urban legends that are similar and goes to town with it,
right,
where this one just kind of borrows from it. But I do like the beginning where they're all doing that too, because if you take little pieces of each thing they say, it kind of goes through like almost the movie. of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
As if there's a narrator saying, like, this is a story that's been told a million times, but this is our version or something, you know, it's kind of.
Exactly. And I think that was a cool way to get the idea out there of this. One thing I thought was funny was just pulling up to the beach. They did a little bit of foreshadowing in the soundtrack, and they played DUI by The Offspring. Yeah. I was like, ooh, on repeat viewing kind of lets you know what's going to happen in the next scene.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does.
And I love in that scene, the song that's supposed to be like really fucking badass when the tone changes is Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, which is not badass at all.
Or what the hell is this crap?
But I love me some ska.
I love Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but there was a time where it was like the more rambunctious Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Like maybe we were going to go to like a really exciting soccer game or something. So yeah, the film, we got this guy, he's kind of got the whole shape thing going on too, because we never see his face throughout the whole entire film.
Right.
So you don't know if he's the fisherman or like what it is. And so that other looks great in the film. So someone did a good job of like hiding the face in ways that don't look like you're hiding the face.
Yeah, they did a great job until they started throwing out the red herrings in the parade scene.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, that's very true.
But they did a good job hiding his face and not making it obvious.
Yeah,